The rescue fleet arrived with the setting sun. 12 warships descended through the orange sky, their engines roaring like thunder. They were the finest vessels in the Valoran Empire, sleek and deadly, built for war and built to win. They surrounded the old spaceport like predators circling wounded prey, ready to destroy anything that threatened their princess. Yura stood at the edge of the landing zone, watching the ships descend. Beside her, Dohan waited in silence, his hands in his pockets, his face calm and unreadable as always. The flagship touched down first. Its ramp lowered and soldiers poured out elite guards in gleaming armor, their weapons raised and ready. Behind them came Admiral Kova, his purple robes flowing in the wind created by the ships. "Your Highness." The Admiral rushed forward and fell to one knee before Yura. "Thank the stars you are safe. Your father has been in agony since your disappearance. The entire Empire has been searching for you." "I am well, Admiral," Yura said. "Thanks to this man." She gestured to Dohan. The Admiral rose and looked at the human farmer with undisguised curiosity. He was clearly trying to understand how such an ordinary-looking person could have done what Yura claimed. "You have the gratitude of the Valoran Empire," the Admiral said formally. "Name your reward." "Wealth, lands, a title, anything within our power to give is yours." Dohan shook his head. "I need nothing. Thank you." The Admiral frowned. "Surely there must be something. There is not." Dohan's voice was firm but polite. "I was happy to help. That is enough." Admiral Kova looked like he wanted to argue, but Yura touched his arm and shook her head slightly. The Admiral nodded and stepped back. "Very well. At least allow us to escort you back to your home. Our ships can have you there in minutes." "I prefer to walk," Dohan said. "The forest is peaceful this time of day." More soldiers were emerging from the ships now, fanning out across the spaceport. They were checking buildings, securing the perimeter, making sure no threats remained. Yura saw them whispering to each other, glancing at Dohan with confusion in their eyes. "Princess," one of the soldiers approached. "We found several bodies in the forest along the path from the western farms. They appear to be Shadow Guild assassins. All dead. It looks like they were killed by a single attacker." Admiral Kova's eyes widened. He turned to look at Dohan again, and this time there was fear in his gaze. Real, genuine fear. "How many bodies?" he asked slowly. 17 so far, Admiral. "We are still searching." 17. Plus the 7 at the farmhouse. 24 Shadow Guild assassins, all dead. And Dohan had died alone. "Who are you?" Admiral Kova whispered. His hand moved toward his weapon without him seeming to realize it. Yura stepped between them. "He is my friend," she said firmly. "And he saved my life. Multiple times. Whatever else he may be, he's not our enemy." The Admiral stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly and took his hand away from his weapon. "Of course, Your Highness. Forgive me." Yura turned to Dohan. They looked at each other in silence. After 5 days together, after everything they had been through, she still felt like she barely knew him. He was a mystery wrapped in ordinary clothes, a legend disguised as a farmer. "Come with me," she said softly, so only he could hear. "My father would welcome you. You could have a good life on my homeworld. A peaceful life." Dohan smiled slightly. It was the first real smile she had seen on his face. "I already have a peaceful life, Princess. Or I did, before you crashed into my field. I am sorry about that. Do not be. It has been nice, having someone to talk to." He looked away, toward the forest where his farm waited. "But I am not meant for palaces and politics. I have spent too many years alone. I would not know how to live among people again." Yura felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not know why. She barely knew this man. But something about leaving him behind felt wrong, like she was abandoning something precious. "Will I see you again?" she asked. Duhan was quiet for a moment. "The galaxy is large, Princess. Paths cross sometimes. But I think it is better if you forget about me. Forget about the ghost. Remember only that a farmer helped you once. And nothing more. I could never forget you. You should try." He looked at her with those plain brown eyes, and she saw something there, something deep and sad and impossibly human. "The things I have done, the person I used to be, those are not things worth remembering. Let me stay buried. Let me stay dead. It is better for everyone." Yura wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him that he was wrong, that he was worth remembering, that the galaxy needed people like him. But she could see in his eyes that his mind was made up. He had made peace with his own disappearance. He had chosen this life, simple, quiet, alone, and nothing she said would change that. "Thank you," she said instead. "For everything?" Doan nodded. "Take care of yourself, Princess. The galaxy is dangerous for people like you. Stay alert. Trust your instincts. And remember what I taught you about awareness." "I will." He turned and began walking toward the forest. Yura watched him go, this ordinary-looking man who was anything but ordinary. This farmer who was also the most dangerous weapon humanity had ever produced. This legend who just wanted to be left alone. "Your Highness," Admiral Kova said gently, "we should go. Your father is waiting." Yura nodded, but she did not look away from Dohan's retreating figure. She thought about what she had learned over the past 5 days. Not just about awareness and survival, but about humans themselves. Before this experience, she had believed what most of the galaxy believed. The humans were primitive, weak, unimportant. New arrivals to the cosmic stage, barely worth noticing. But now she understood the truth. Humans were terrifying, not because they were physically powerful or technologically advanced. They were neither, but because they contained multitudes. A human could be a soldier and a farmer, a killer and a healer, a monster and a saint all at the same time. They could commit terrible violence and then choose to walk away, to become something else entirely. Dohan was the proof of this. The ghost of Hanem, the most feared human in galactic history, had simply decided to stop being that person. He had put down his weapons and picked up farming tools. He had traded battle for peace, fame for anonymity, legend for ordinary life. And when he was forced to fight again, he had done so with devastating efficiency. Then he had gone right back to being a farmer, as if nothing had happened. That was what made humans dangerous. Not their strength, but their adaptability. Their ability to change. To become whatever they needed to become, whenever they needed to become it. The galaxy did not understand this yet. They still looked at humans and saw primitives, weaklings, children playing at being adults. But Yura understood now. And as she boarded the flagship and watched the planet Miran shrink beneath her, she made a silent promise. She would tell her father what she had learned. She would make sure the Valoran Empire understood the truth about humanity. And she would make sure that no one, not the Shadow Guild, not any enemy, would ever underestimate humans again. Because somewhere on that little planet, a farmer was walking home through the forest. A simple man with simple clothes and simple needs, and he could destroy armies if he chose to. That was the real lesson of her ordeal. That was the truth that made her shudder every time she thought about it. Humans were not weak. They were just patient. They were hiding their true nature, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. And when that moment came, when humanity finally showed the galaxy what they were capable of, nothing would ever be the same. Why? Ira closed her eyes as the ship entered hyperspace. She thought of Dahan. Alone in his farmhouse, watching the stars, she wondered if he ever thought about the life he had left behind. The wars he had fought. the enemies he had destroyed. She wondered if he ever missed being the ghost. And deep down, in a place she did not like to examine too closely, she wondered what would happen if someone made him angry enough to become the ghost again. She hoped she would never find out, but somehow, she suspected that the galaxy had not seen the last of Dohon. Some legends refused to stay buried. Some ghosts refused to stay dead. The spaceport was old and dirty, and perfect dot, it sat at the edge of a dying town, surrounded by rusted ships and broken machinery. Smugglers used it. Criminals used it. People who did not want to be found used it. The kind of place where nobody asked questions and everybody minded their own business. "We can find a communication terminal here," Dawn said as they approached. "You can contact your fleet. They will come for you." Yira looked at the rundown buildings and the suspicious characters walking between them. "Are you sure this is safe?" "No, but it is the only option. The official spaceports will be watched." They entered the town together. Yira had wrapped herself in a cloak that Dawn had found along the way, hiding her purple skin and 4 eyes. She kept her head down and walked close to him, trying to look like she belonged. The streets were narrow and crowded with aliens of many species. Yira saw reptilian traders selling weapons. She saw insectoid merchants offering illegal technology. She saw hulking warriors drinking in open bars, their laughter loud and threatening. Nobody paid attention to them. They were just 2 more travelers in a town full of travelers. The communication terminal was in a small building near the center of town. Dohan paid the operator a fat, greasy alien with too many eyes and led Yira to a private booth. "Be quick," he said. "Use the emergency frequency. Tell them your location. Then we leave." Yira nodded and began entering codes into the terminal. Her fingers shook slightly. After 5 days of running, she was finally about to reach safety. Finally about to go home. The connection established. A familiar face appeared on the screen. Admiral Kova, commander of her father's personal fleet. "Princess." The Admiral's face showed relief and concern in equal measure. "You are alive. We have been searching everywhere. Your father has not slept since your ship was destroyed." "I am safe," Yira said. "I am on a planet called Maran, at an old spaceport on the western continent. Send ships. I need extraction. We are already on our way. We detected distress signals from your escape pod days ago. A rescue fleet will arrive within hours." The Admiral paused. "Your Highness, how did you survive?" "The assassins. They sent the Shadow Guild's best killers." Yira glanced at Doan, who stood with his back to her, watching the door. "I had help. A human farmer found me and protected me." "A human farmer defeated Shadow Guild assassins?" The Admiral sounded doubtful. "I know it sounds impossible, but it is true. We will want to speak with this human, to thank him, and to understand how he accomplished such a thing." "I am sure he will." The door to the communication booth burst open. A huge alien stood in the doorway. He was nearly 3 meters tall, with gray skin and scars covering every visible surface of his body. His eyes were yellow and cruel. He wore the armor of a bounty hunter, heavy plates, decorated with kill markings. "Wow, wow," the bounty hunter said, his voice like grinding stones. "The princes of the Valoran Empire, sitting in a communication booth like a common criminal. My employers will pay handsomely for your head." Yira scrambled backward, her heart pounding. She had no weapon, no way to defend herself. She looked to Dawn, but Dawn was already moving. He stepped between Yira and the bounty hunter, calm as ever. His hands hung loose at his sides. He did not look afraid. He did not look angry. He looked empty, like all emotion had simply drained from his face. The bounty hunter laughed. "And who is this? Your servant? Your pet? Step aside, little human." This does not concern you. Leave now, Don said. His voice was flat, dead. This is your only warning. The bounty hunter's laughter grew louder. Warning? You warn me? Do you know who I am? Human? I am Gorath, the Crusher. I have killed 1,000 warriors across 100 worlds. I have torn apart beings 10 times your size with my bare hands. And you dare to warn me? Don said nothing. He simply waited. Gorath reached for the gun at his hip. His hand was faster than any being his size should have been able to move. He had won countless fights with that speed. He had survived countless battles because of that speed. But his hand never reached the gun. Dohan moved. One moment he was standing still. The next, he was behind Gorath. Nobody saw him move. Nobody saw what he did. There was simply a blur of motion, a soft sound like cloth tearing, and then Gorath was falling. The massive bounty hunter hit the ground with a crash that shook the building. He was unconscious. A thin trickle of blood ran from a small wound on his neck, a precise strike to a pressure point that even most doctors did not know about. The commotion had drawn attention. Other bounty hunters and criminals were gathering outside the booth, looking in. Some of them had weapons drawn. Some of them looked eager for violence. Then one of them, a thin, pale alien with cybernetic eyes, saw Dahan's face clearly. The alien's expression changed. His skin went from pale to white. His cybernetic eyes widened so much they nearly fell out of his skull. He dropped his weapon and began backing away. No, he whispered. No. It cannot be. The other criminals looked at him with confusion. What is wrong with you? One of them demanded. It is just a human. That is not just a human. The pale alien's voice was rising in pitch, becoming a shriek. That is. He pointed at Doham with a shaking finger. The ghost of Hanum. Silence fell over the crowd. Complete, absolute silence. Then chaos erupted. The bounty hunters and criminals did not attack. They ran. They scattered like frightened animals, knocking each other over in their desperation to escape. Some of them dropped their weapons. Some of them dropped their bags of money. They did not care. They only cared about getting away. In seconds, the area around the communication booth was empty. YIRA stood frozen, staring at Dahan's back. The ghost of Hanum. The legend. The soldier who had single-handedly changed the course of the border wars. The most dangerous human who had ever lived, and he was standing right in front of her. Duhan turned to face her. His expression had changed. The emptiness was gone, replaced by something tired and old. He looked like a man who had been carrying a secret for too long and was almost relieved to set it down. Now you know, he said quietly. Yura's legs gave out. She sat down heavily on the floor of the booth, her mind spinning. Everything suddenly made sense. The way he moved. The way he fought. The way he survived against impossible odds. The way that even the bravest killers in the galaxy fled at the mention of his name. You are him, she whispered. You are actually him. The ghost. Dohan walked to the window and looked outside. The streets were completely empty now. Everyone had fled or hidden. The mere rumor of his presence had cleared an entire town. I was him, he said. A long time ago. I did things during the war that I cannot undo. Terrible things. Necessary things. When the war ended, I wanted to forget. I wanted to be someone else. So I came here, to this forgotten planet, and I became a farmer. But why? You are a hero. You ended the border wars. You saved millions of lives. Dohan turned to look at her, and his eyes were full of old pain. I am not a hero, princess. I am a weapon. A very effective weapon. And weapons do not save lives. Weapons take them. Yura did not know what to say. She had grown up hearing stories about the ghost of Hanum. In those stories, He was a figure of glory and wonder, a champion of humanity, a guardian of the innocent. But the man standing before her was not glorious. He was tired, haunted, broken in ways she could not understand. "The rescue fleet is coming," she finally said. "You heard the Admiral. They will be here in hours. I know. You should come with me. Return to civilization." "You deserve." "I deserve nothing," Dohan interrupted. "And I want nothing. When your fleet arrives, you will leave, and I will return to my farm. That is how it must be. But the assassins will come for you. The Shadow Guild will want revenge." Dohan almost smiled. It was a small, sad expression. "The Shadow Guild has been trying to kill me for 15 years. They have not succeeded yet." He held out his hand to help her up. She took it, feeling the strength in his grip, the calluses on his palm. "Your fleet will be here soon," he said. "We should find a safe place to wait." They left the communication booth together and walked through the empty streets. Yura kept glancing at Dawn, at the ghost, trying to match the legend with the reality. She had so many questions. So much she wanted to understand. But some questions, she was beginning to realize, had answers too heavy to carry. They walked through the forest for 3 days. Dohan led the way, moving through the trees like water flowing around stones. He made no sound when he walked. His feet found the perfect places to step, avoiding dry branches and loose rocks. Yura tried to copy his movements, but she was clumsy compared to him. Every step she took seemed to announce their location to the entire planet. "You are thinking too much," Dawn said on the second day. "Walking should be natural. Do not plan where to step. Let your body decide." "My body wants to fall over," Yura muttered. Her leg was healing thanks to Dohan's treatment, but it still hurt with every step. How much farther to this spaceport? 2 more days, maybe 3. Depends on how many times we have to go around trouble. What kind of trouble? Dohan stopped walking and held up one hand. Yura froze behind him, barely breathing. Through the trees ahead, she could see movement. Figures in dark armor, searching the forest with scanning equipment. More assassins. More hunters. "Stay low," Dohan whispered. "Follow me." He led her in a wide circle around the patrol. They moved for hours in complete silence, never getting closer than 100 meters to the hunters. When they finally stopped to rest, the sun was setting, and Yura's legs were shaking with exhaustion. "How did you know they were there?" she asked. "You stopped before I could even see them." Dohan shrugged. "I heard them. I did not hear anything. You were not listening." Yura frowned. This was typical of Dohan. He gave answers that were not really answers. He explained things without actually explaining them. Every conversation with him left her with more questions than before. "Will you teach me?" she asked. "How to move like you. How to listen like you." Dohan looked at her with those plain brown eyes. "Why would a princess need to learn such things?" "Because I am tired of being helpless," Yura said. There was anger in her voice now. Anger at herself. Anger at her situation. "When the assassins attacked my ship, I could do nothing. I hid while my guards died. I ran while my people were murdered. I am the daughter of an emperor, and I am as useless as a child." Dohan was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well," he said. "First lesson, be still." "Be still?" "Stop moving. Stop thinking. Just exist. Feel the air on your skin. Hear the sounds of the forest." Most people spend their lives ignoring the world around them. They are so busy with their own thoughts that they become blind and deaf. To survive, you must learn to pay attention. Yura closed her 4 eyes and tried to do as he said. At first, she felt nothing, heard nothing. Her mind kept racing with worries and fears and questions, but slowly, As the minutes passed, things began to change. She heard the wind in the leaves. She heard small animals moving through the underbrush. She heard water flowing somewhere in the distance, a stream, maybe. She felt the temperature of the air, cool now that the sun was setting. She smelled the forest, rich with life and decay. "Good," Doan said. "Now open your eyes and keep that awareness. Let it stay with you as you move." They continued walking, and Yura found that she noticed things she had missed before. She saw footprints in the mud that were not theirs. She saw broken branches that showed where someone had passed recently. She heard sounds that did not belong to the forest, mechanical sounds, distant and faint. "There are more of them out here," she said. Dohan nodded. "Many more. They have brought a small army to find you." "How are we avoiding them all?" "We have no weapons, no technology. Just your knowledge of this planet." "This is not my planet," Dahon said. "I came here 5 years ago. But all forests are similar. All hunting parties make the same mistakes." "What mistakes?" "They rely on their equipment. Their scanners and trackers and communication devices. They forget that people survived for thousands of years before such things existed. They forget that technology can be fooled, but instinct cannot." They walked in silence for a while. Yura practiced her awareness, keeping her senses open to the world around her. It was exhausting in a strange way, not physically tiring, but mentally draining. By the time they stopped for the night, her mind felt stretched and raw. Doan made a small fire, hidden in a depression in the ground where the light would not be seen from above. He gave her dried meat and water from a stream they had crossed earlier. "Tell me about your planet," Yura said. "About Earth. I have never been there." Doan stared into the flames. "It is far from here. A small world, mostly water. Humans lived there for many thousands of years before we learned to travel among the stars. Is it beautiful?" "Yes, and terrible. Like most things. Do you miss it?" A pause. The fire crackled softly. "Sometimes. But I cannot go back." "Why not?" Doan did not answer. He just kept staring at the flames, and Yura knew that she had touched something painful. A wound that had not healed. "I am sorry," she said. "I should not have asked. It is fine. Some questions have no easy answers." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Despite everything, the danger, the uncertainty, the fear, found herself feeling almost peaceful. There was something calming about Dohan's presence. He was like a still point in a spinning galaxy, unchanging and solid. "Can I ask you a different question?" Yura said. Dohan nodded. "On my ship, before the attack, I received a communication. A warning. Someone knew the assassins were coming. They tried to tell me, but the message was cut off before I could understand it fully." "Do you know who might have sent it?" Doan's face did not change, but something in his body went very still. "What did the message say?" It said, "Beware the Shadow Guild. They come for you at the asteroid field. Trust no one. Find." Yura paused, remembering. "Find the ghost." Those were the last words before the signal died. Dahan said nothing. "Do you know what that means?" "The ghost? Is it a person? A place?" "It is a legend," Dahan said softly. "A story humans tell their children. Nothing more. What kind of story?" Dahan was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was distant, like he was reciting words from a very old book. During the Border Wars, when humans first joined the galactic community, there was a soldier. Nobody knew his real name. He appeared and disappeared like smoke. He could not be caught, could not be killed, could not be stopped. He destroyed fleets single-handed. He assassinated warlords in their own bedrooms. He changed the course of the entire war. They called him the Ghost of Hanum, after the place where he was supposedly born. Yura listened with growing interest. "What happened to him?" The war ended. The ghost vanished. Most people think he died. Others think he simply chose to disappear. Either way, he has not been seen in 10 years. And you think this is just a story? A legend? Dohan looked at her. His eyes were unreadable. I think that stories often have truth hidden inside them. But I also think that legends are dangerous. People believe them too easily. He stood up and kicked dirt over the fire, putting it out. Sleep now, he said. We leave before dawn. Tomorrow will be hard. Yura lay down on the ground, using her arm as a pillow. Above her, through gaps in the tree canopy, she could see the stars' countless points of light scattered across the infinite darkness. Somewhere out there, her father was probably worried sick. Her empire was probably in chaos. Wars might be starting because of her disappearance, and here she was, walking through a forest with a mysterious farmer who killed assassins like they were insects. Find the ghost. She thought about those words as sleep took her. She thought about the story Dohan had told. She thought about the way he moved, the way he fought, the secrets he carried behind his ordinary eyes. Could it be possible? No, it was too strange, too convenient. The ghost of M was a legend, and legends were not real, were they? In the darkness, Dohan sat with his back against a tree, watching the forest. He did not sleep. He never slept when danger was near, and danger was always near. The stars burned bright above the frontier planet called Miran. It was a simple world, far from the great empires and their wars. Farmers lived here. Traders passed through sometimes. Nothing important ever happened on Myra and Dot until tonight. Princess Yura watched her ship fall apart around her. Fire spread through the corridors. Her guards lay dead at her feet. The assassins had come out of nowhere, their black ships cutting through space like knives through water. They had waited in the asteroid field, patient as death itself, and struck when the royal vessel was most vulnerable. Your Highness, you must go. Her last remaining guard, a young soldier named Tevin, pushed her toward the escape pod. Blood covered his silver armor. He would not survive much longer. Come with me, Yura said. Her voice shook. She was only 19 years old, and she had never seen real violence before today. Her purple skin had turned pale with fear. Her 4 eyes, normally bright with confidence, now showed only terror. Someone must hold them back, Tevin said. He smiled at her one last time. Tell my family I died with honor. Before Yura could respond, he pushed her into the escape pod and sealed the door. She heard gunfire. She heard screaming. Then the pod launched, and she heard nothing but the roar of engines as she fell toward the planet below. The crash was violent. The pod hit the ground hard, rolling through a forest and smashing through trees before finally stopping in a muddy field. Yura crawled out, her body broken in several places. Blue blood dripped from wounds on her arms and legs. Her royal dress, once beautiful and white, was now torn and dirty. She looked up at the sky. She could see her ship burning as it fell from orbit, a trail of fire across the night. Everyone was dead. Her guards, her servants, her advisors. All gone in a single attack. Yura knew she had to move. The assassins would come looking for her. They would not stop until they found her body. She was the only daughter of Emperor Vareth, ruler of the Valoran Empire. Her death would break her father's heart and create chaos in the succession. That was what her enemies wanted. She walked through the forest, leaving a trail of blue blood behind her. Every step hurt. Her left leg was badly damaged. Her breathing was difficult. But she kept moving, because stopping meant dying. Planet Moran had 2 moons, and both hung heavy in the sky, giving enough light to see. Yura saw mountains in the distance. She saw a river cutting through the valley, and she saw, far away, a small light. A building. Civilization. It took her 3 hours to reach the light. 3 hours of pain and fear and cold. By the time she arrived, she could barely stand. Her vision was blurry. Her body was shutting down from blood loss and exhaustion. The light came from a small farmhouse. It was a simple structure made of wood and stone, nothing like the grand palaces of her homeworld. Smoke rose from a chimney. A garden grew beside the front door. It looked peaceful. Safe.YRA collapsed at the edge of the property. Her legs simply stopped working. She fell face first into the dirt and could not get up again. This is where I die, she thought. On some forgotten planet, in front of some farmer's house, alone and afraid. She heard a door open. Footsteps approached, soft against the grass. A voice spoke, deep and calm. "You're hurt." Yura tried to look up, but couldn't find the strength. She felt hands touch her shoulders, gentle but strong. The person rolled her over, and she finally saw his face. He was human. She had seen humans before, at diplomatic meetings and trade negotiations. They were a young species, only recently arrived on the galactic stage. Most empires considered them primitive, weak, unimportant. This human looked ordinary. He had dark hair, cut short and practical. His face was weathered from years of working under the sun. His eyes were brown and unremarkable. He wore simple clothes, a worn shirt, dirty pants, boots covered in mud. A farmer, obviously. Nothing special at all. "Can you speak?" the human asked. His voice was soft, like he was talking to a frightened animal. "Please," Yura managed to say. "Help me." The human nodded. Without another word, he picked her up in his arms and carried her toward the house. He moved easily, as if she weighed nothing at all. Yura noticed his arms were strong, much stronger than his simple appearance suggested. Inside, the farmhouse was warm and clean. A fire burned in a stone fireplace. Simple furniture filled the room, a wooden table, a few chairs, a bed in the corner. The human laid Yura on the bed and examined her wounds. "Bad," he said quietly, "but not deadly. I can fix this." He worked quickly and efficiently. He cleaned her wounds with water and wrapped them with clean cloth. He set her broken bones with practiced hands. He gave her water to drink and something bitter that made her pain fade away. Through it all, he never asked questions. He never demanded to know who she was or why she was hurt. He simply helped her, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "What is your name?" Yura finally asked. When the worst of her wounds were treated, the human looked at her with those plain brown eyes. "Doan," he said. "My name is Doan." "Doan," Yura repeated. It was a simple name, easy to remember. I know who you are," Dohan interrupted. He pointed at the royal symbol still visible on her torn dress. "Princes of the Valoran Empire. Your face is on the news broadcasts sometimes." Yura felt fear rise in her chest. If he knew who she was, he could sell her to her enemies. He could ransom her back to her father. He could do anything. But Doan just shrugged and walked toward the fireplace. "Are you hungry?" "I was making soup when I heard you fall." Yura stared at him, confused. "You are not." "Surprised?" "You are not afraid?" Dohan stirred the pot over the fire. "Should I be? I am the princess of an empire that spans 1,000 worlds," Yura said. "Assassins are hunting me. Anyone near me is in danger." "Sounds like you need soup then," Dohan said simply. He poured the hot liquid into a wooden bowl and brought it to her. "Eat, rest. Tomorrow we can figure out what to do." Yura took the bowl with shaking hands. She did not understand this human at all. He was too calm, too unimpressed. Any other person in the galaxy would be panicking right now. But Dohan acted like a princess. Crashing into his field was an ordinary Tuesday. She drank the soup. It was simple vegetables and grain cooked in water, but it was the best thing she had ever tasted. Warmth spread through her body. Her fear began to fade. "Thank you," she whispered. Dohan nodded and sat in a chair by the fire. "Sleep now," he said. "You are safe here." Safe. Yura almost laughed. She was on an unknown planet, wounded and alone, with assassins hunting her. She was far from safe, but something about Dohan's voice made her believe him. Something about the way he sat there, watching the door with those calm brown eyes, made her feel protected. Like nothing bad could touch her while he was nearby. It was foolish, she knew. He was just a farmer, just a human. What could he possibly do against the forces hunting her? But exhaustion was stronger than doubt. Her eyes closed and sleep took her. Outside in the darkness of the forest, ships were landing. The assassins had arrived on Moran. They were coming, and Dawn sat by the fire, waiting. Yura woke to the sound of boots on dry leaves. Her 4 eyes snapped open, and her heart immediately began to race. Morning light filled the farmhouse through small windows. The fire had died down to soft embers, and outside she could hear movement. Many feet, many voices. Getting closer. "They found me," she whispered. Duhan stood by the window, looking out through a crack in the wooden shutters. His face showed no emotion at all. He could have been watching birds fly by instead of assassins approaching his home. 7 of them, he said calmly. They spread out around the house. Professional formation. Yura tried to stand, but her wounded leg gave out beneath her. She fell back onto the bed with a cry of pain. She was still too weak. She could not run. She could not fight. "You have to leave," she said to Dawn. "Please. Go out the back. Hide in the forest. They do not want you. They want me." Dawn turned to look at her. For just a moment, something strange passed through his brown eyes. Something cold. Something ancient. Then it was gone, and he was just a simple farmer again. "Go to the cellar," he said. He pointed to a wooden door in the floor that Yura had not noticed before. "Stay quiet. Do not come out until I tell you. What are you going to do?" Dohan walked to a cabinet in the corner of the room. He opened it and took out something wrapped in old cloth. His movements were slow and deliberate, like a man performing a ritual he had hoped to never perform again. "What I have to do," he said. Why Yura wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him that running was the only option. That fighting 7 professional assassins was suicide. That he was just a farmer, and farmers did not win battles against killers. But something in his voice stopped her. Something in the way he held himself had changed. His shoulders were different. His stance was different. Even his breathing seemed different, slower, deeper, controlled. "Go," Doan said. It was not a request. Yura crawled to the cellar door and pulled it open. A ladder led down into darkness. She climbed down carefully, her wounded body screaming in protest, and pulled the door closed above her. The cellar was small and cold. Bags of grain filled the space. Dried vegetables hung from the ceiling. Yura pressed herself against the wall and listened. For a long moment, there was silence. Then she heard the front door of the farmhouse crash open. "Search everywhere," a harsh voice commanded. "The princess must be here." Our trackers followed her blood trail to this location. Yura covered her mouth to keep from making sound. Her whole body trembled. These were the same assassins who had killed her guards, who had destroyed her ship, who had murdered everyone she cared about. And now they were directly above her. "You there?" the harsh voice said. "Human, where is the Valoran female?" Dohan's voice came next, still calm, still soft. "I live alone. There is no one else here. Do not lie to us, primitive. We can smell her blood. We know she is here." A pause. Then Dohan spoke again, and this time his voice was different. Lower, colder, like ice forming on a winter lake. I am going to give you one chance, he said. Take your men. Leave this planet. Never come back. Laughter filled the farmhouse. Cruel, mocking laughter. One chance? The leader of the assassins said, You misunderstand your situation, human. There are 7 of us. We are trained killers from the Shadow Guild. We have ended the lives of princes and generals and kings. And you are what? A farmer? You grow vegetables and feed animals. What could you possibly do to us? Silence. Then Dohan said one word. Watch. What happened next was difficult for Yura to follow. She could only hear it through the wooden floor above her head. But the sounds painted a picture that she would never forget. There was a wet, snapping noise, the sound of a neck breaking. A body hit the floor. Then chaos erupted. Gunfire. Screaming. The crash of furniture being destroyed. Bodies hitting walls. Metal striking metal. More screaming, high and terrified. The screams of men who suddenly realized they were not the predators anymore. One assassin tried to run. Yura heard his footsteps racing toward the door. Then she heard a single swift movement, and the footsteps stopped. Another assassin was begging. Please, please. I surrender. His voice cut off with a gurgle. The whole thing lasted less than 2 minutes. Then there was silence again. Complete, perfect silence. Not even the sound of breathing. Yura sat in the darkness of the cellar, too afraid to move. What had she just heard? What had just happened? 7 trained assassins from the Shadow Guild, the most feared killers in the galaxy, and they were gone. All of them. In 2 minutes, the cellar door opened. Light poured in, blinding her for a moment. You can come up now, Dohan said. His voice was the same as before, calm, soft, ordinary. Yura climbed the ladder slowly, her hands shaking so badly she almost fell twice. When she reached the top and looked around the farmhouse, she stopped breathing. 7 bodies lay on the floor. Some were twisted at unnatural angles. Some had wounds that Yura could not identify, cuts so precise they looked surgical. One assassin's mask had been removed, and his face was frozen in an expression of absolute terror, like he had seen death itself coming for him. And in the middle of it all stood Dohan. He was wiping blood from a blade that Yura had never seen before. It was long and curved, the metal dark as night. Where had it come from? He had not been carrying it when she first met him. She would have noticed. His clothes had blood on them, but he did not appear to be wounded. His breathing was normal. His hands were steady. He looked bored, like killing 7 assassins was a mild inconvenience, something that interrupted his morning routine. Are you hungry? He asked, looking at her. I can make breakfast after I clean this up. Yura stared at him. Her mind could not process what she was seeing. Who are you? She whispered. Dohan looked at the blade in his hand, then back at her. Something sad passed through his eyes. I am a farmer, he said. That is all I am now. Farmers do not fight like that. Farmers do not kill 7 Shadow Guild assassins in 2 minutes. Dohan walked to the cabinet and put the blade back inside, wrapping it in its cloth covering. His movements were gentle, almost reverent, like he was putting a sleeping child to bed. I was not always a farmer, he said quietly. Yura wanted to ask more questions. She wanted to demand answers, but the look on Dohan's face stopped her. It was the look of a man carrying a heavy weight, a man who had seen things he wished to forget, a man who had done things he could never undo. So instead of asking questions, she simply said, Thank you for saving my life. Dohan nodded. He grabbed one of the bodies and began dragging it toward the door. Help me move these outside, he said. Then we should leave. More will come. The Shadow Guild does not give up easily. Yira looked at the bodies on the floor. She looked at the blood on the walls. She looked at the simple farmer who had just done the impossible. She had 1,000 questions. But right now, survival came first. Answers could come later. Together, they began the grim work of cleaning up the dead. Outside, the morning sun rose over Moran, bright and warm and peaceful. The birds sang in the trees. The wind blew through the grass. It was a beautiful day dot, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, more ships were already on their way.